Okay, so good morning, everyone. For our next topic is about Cognitive Affective Personality System, or CAPS, by Walter Mischel. So, the perspective of Walter Mischel is he doesn't really believe that we should only look at traits in order for us to understand the uniqueness of the person, the behavior of the person. That's why we give more importance to cognitive affective units in our personality. So, today, we're going to take a look at these units and we're going to understand what is the role of these affective units in trying to understand, predict, and perhaps even modify human behavior. So, some theorists, such as Hans Eysenck and Gordon Allport, believe that behavior was mostly a product of relatively stable personality traits. So, they do believe that behavior was mostly a product of relatively stable personality traits or dispositions. So, in other words, um, they do believe that in order for us to understand a human person, we need to look at the traits of the person, and from that, we will be able to predict how will a person behave when he or she is placed in a certain situation. However, Walter Mischel objected to his assumption. His early research led him to believe that behavior was largely a function of the situation. So, he's criticizing the perspective of trait psychology by saying that if we want to know how a person will behave, let's not only look at traits, but also we need to take a look at the features of the certain situations. So uh, a certain situation. So what makes the situation unique? What makes the situation different in contrast to other situations? Next is the consistency paradox. No? So Michelle saw that both laypersons and professional psychologists seem to intuitively believe that people's behavior is relatively consistent, yet empirical evidence suggests much variability in behavior, a situation Michelle called consistency paradox. So, how does his beliefs differ in contrast to the propositions of trait psychology? So, basically, if you're a trait psychologist, you would assume that an extroverted person is supposed to be an extroverted individual in all situations. However, sa Michelle, there might be some situation in which you are sociable, or there might also be situations in which you are quiet, and some trait psychologists would say that's not supposed to happen. But for Michelle, he would say that there are changes in our behavior, no, not because of mistakes and production, but rather there are changes in our behavior because we should also look at the situation. So if the situation changes, then the behavior may change as well, because situation A may not be the same with situation B. Uh, that's why it's a paradox. Is you are consistently different for situations. So he contended that some basic traits do persist over time, but little evidence exists that they generalize from one situation to another. So unlike what trait psychologists are trying, that the traits are supposed to manifest in all situations, Michelle is convinced that it's hard for us to say that an extroverted person will be extroverted in all the situations that he'll be placed in. Next is we have the person situation interactions. Uh, Michelle's objection to the use of traits as predictors of behaviors rested not with their temporal instability but with their inconsistency from one situation to another. He saw that many basic dispositions can be stable over a long period of time. So it's not just traits that we should look at. We should also look at the situation. How does it influence your behavior, your attitude, um, in that situation. No? So, for example, highly conscientious people may be conscientious with regards to their work, but not clean, but cannot clean his or her place. Or, for example, ako na high kintay ko conscientious when it comes to work, but dili ko ka maintain o cleanliness, or di ko kalimpyo sa akong pamuyo or sa akong kwarto kintahay. Kay ako na hunaahan mo kuan pa man nga magihapon kay magubot nga na. So na siya. Next is personal dispositions influence behavior only under certain conditions and in certain situations. So, naatay ka ng stable traits, and at the same time kanang it will interact with our situation to produce behavior. Next is neither the situation alone nor stable personality traits alone determine behavior. Rather, behavior is a product of both. So Michel should have proposed a cognitive affective personality system that attempts to reconcile these two approaches to protecting human behavior. So it's not just the situation, or it's not just the personality traits, it's an interaction of both. Interaction of the situation and the personality traits para makaproduce sila og behavior. So next is we have behavior prediction. So if personality is a stable system that processes the information about the situations, external or internal, then it follows that as individuals encounter different situations, their behaviors should vary across the situations. It also assumes that production of behavior rests on a knowledge of how and when various cognitive affective units are activated. The cognitive okay, sir. So kanang variables ang variables mo na siya ang mag-explain sa variability ng behavior nato, no. So parang ang variables na mag-explain ng variability ng behavior natin is yung mga tinatawag na cognitive affective units. So kumbaga meron tayong personal traits, meron din tayong situations, and ang mag-determine sa kung unsay atong behavior ay nakadepende siya sa situation. Depende sa situation is yung cognitive affective units. Kumbaga, anong cognitive affective units, siya yung nasa tunga bitaw. No? Siya yung nasa kinta. So depende kung paano natin encode yung situation, beliefs, competencies, etc. Yun yung magiging behaviors natin. So cognitive affective units encoding, expectations, beliefs, competencies, self-regulatory plans, and strategies and effects and goals. Next is we have situation variables. Situation variables or situation can also influence behaviors kasi may mga times nga powerful ang situations. No? So there are times where a situation have more influence in behavior. There are times that individual differences are more powerful. So when different people are behaving in a very similar manner, like for example, while watching an emotional scene in an engrossing scene, situation variables are more powerful than personal characteristics. So, for example, tanaw ka sa lida nga Inside Out. So, naana ka sa part nga nawala si Bingbong. So, syempre, ikaw nga nagtanong makahila ka na nga scene. So, because it's something that is very emotional. But naapoy mga times nga kanang may ngibabaw ang personality traits. Like for example, several workers may all be laid off from their jobs, but individual differences will lead to diverse behaviors depending on the worker's perceived need to work. confidence in their level of skill, and perceived ability to find another job. So, mo to no kanang for example, sa situation nga kanang pang-layoff ang mga empleyado. So, iba-ibang reaction no ng mga empleyado. May uban nga emotional sila. So, makahilak sila no emotional kay kanang lagi kana importante nila to ilang nga work, and then may uban sad nga kanang react na nga okay ra kay kanang dali ra lagi ko makakitag laing work sad nga na. So lain sila reaction na. So to explain, so so yung situation can somehow predict the behavior of a person, no? So to explain how a person processes their situation, Michelle and Shoda propose personal variables that will interact with the situation or determine behavior, which they call cognitive affective units. Next is we have cognitive affective mediating units. So here are some of the assumptions. First is Michelle proposed a set of 5 overlapping, relatively person variables that interact with the situation to determine behavior. So in layman's term, perhaps what he's trying to tell us is that our beliefs, for example, will interact with the features of the situation. That's why we have different behaviors in different situations. No? So next is this person variables shifted the emphasis from what a person has, like for example global traits, to what a person does in a particular situation. So Michelle gives more importance to situation rather than traits. Next is cognitive affective units include all the psychological, social, and physiological aspects of people that cause them to interact with their environment with a relatively stable pattern of variation. So in other words, you are consistently different in these different situations that you are in. Okay, so we have first cognitive affective units is encoding strategies. So how did you encode the situation or event? So for example, he's being touched by a stranger, same as being touched by a partner. So for example, if your husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend will touch you, no? So you will interpret it as a romantic, but if a stranger is touching you, you then interpret it as creepy or like weird. So you will behave differently depending on what's the person and on who's the person touching you. Okay. So next is when you fail an exam, do you encode this as a failure or as an opportunity to improve? So that's how we differ in contrast to one another's, because some people think that it's a failure. Well, some people think that it's an opportunity for them to improve. Other example is if someone insults you, will you react angrily or will you ignore it? So of course, you would say that it depends on the situation. Basically, that's diba? Like it depends the situation. Now, basically, that's what Michelle is trying to tell us. Our behavior depends on the situation, but it also depends on how we interpret or encode the situation. Next is we have competencies and self-regulation. So our expectations, our competencies also influence our behaviors, our expectations for success. So, for example, a person may be confident in joining a local basketball competition, but he may not be confident in trying to join the NBA. It's very challenging in contrast to the situation. To situation A, no? Kung lahi ang situation A, lahi ang situation B. So, like, kalayan. So, your behavior in these two situations will be different, right? Okay. When we say local basketball competition, like it's compete kita maapil nga na, or di ba kay confident niya, tapos pag sinabing joining in NBA, so they're the confident because we talks something bigger here, diba? Next is a person may feel confident in one subject but not in another. So because you think that you're competent in one subject and you think that you're not that competent in the other subject, so that also influences our behavior. So that's why there are instances in which a person will work hard in mathematics, but he will be easily frustrated, for example, in arts because he has competencies, because uh, his competencies in that subject is not that high. No. So next we have self-regulatory strategies. Just like Bandura, Michelle believed that people do not require external rewards and punishments to shape their behavior. They can set goals for themselves and then reward or criticize themselves contingent upon whether their behavior moves them in the direction of those goals. So in other words, he doesn't really believe what behaviorists are saying. He believes what Bandura is trying to say. I mean, he somehow agrees with kanang Bandura by saying that you don't need rewards, but rather you're the one who choose your own behavior. You're the one who regulate your own behavior. And we do not just look for rewards when we do things. That's why it's called self-regulation. No? Next, we have expectancies and beliefs. So, people's hypotheses or beliefs concerning the outcome of any situation is a better predictor of behavior than is knowledge of their ability to perform. So, your expectation of what will happen in the future is partly influenced by your past experiences. Like, for example, a student preparing for a licensure exam may think it's difficult because of his previous experiences in taking exams. Diba? Next is stimulus outcome expectancy. Michelle believes that stimulus outcome expectancies are important units for understanding classical conditioning. So he also incorporated some of the perspectives of classical conditioning. That's why this is an integrative theory. No? Like for example, a child who has been conditioned to associate pain with nurses and hospital begins to cry and show fear when she sees a nurse with a hypodermic syringe. Next is the goals and values. People do not react passively to situations but are active and goal directed. And we differ in contrast to each other because we also have different goals. No, we have different values. So for example, two college students may have equal academic ability and also equal expectancy for success in graduate school. The first, however, places more value on entering the job market than on going to graduate school, while the second chooses to go to graduate school rather than to pursue an immediate career. So, they have, pareho sila, like, they have the same ability, but, they have different values. So that's why uh, they behave differently, no, in contrast to the people around. So um, they behave differently in contrast to the people around them. Nasa topic kasi. Next is effective responses. Effective responses includes emotions, feelings, and physiological reactions. So for example, I see myself as a competent psychology student, and that pleases me. So if your beliefs make you happy, then you're going to meet that belief. And yeah, I'm not very good at mathematics, and I don't like it. Beliefs, then it only means that you're going to do something about it, something about this belief. Then maybe you're going to change it, right? So that's why we have cognitive behavioral therapy. So I think that's all, and thank you.